Today we're diving into one of the most famous passages in the entire Bible, Psalm 136. Now, a lot of people know it as this beautiful song of love, but hiding right there in plain sight is a startling act of war. And that contradiction? Well, that's the mystery we're going to solve. So on the one hand, you have this famous repeating chorus. It says God's love, or hesed in the original Hebrew, which is this amazing word for grace and mercy and faithfulness all rolled into one, is everlasting. It feels like this big universal song of peace. But then you keep reading, and you get this, a line that celebrates a really violent, devastating moment. And it's followed by the exact same chorus, for his love is everlasting. It just stops you in your tracks, right? It's so jarring. So what is going on here? How can it be both a song of love and a song of war? It feels like a total contradiction. But what if it's not? What if it's something else entirely? We're going to put on our detective hats and use some serious scholarly analysis to decode this ancient puzzle. Okay, to solve this, first we have to zoom out and talk about the single most important, most influential story in the whole Bible. Seriously, this is the key that unlocks not just this one psalm, but tons of other texts. According to scholars like Dr. David Emanuel, that story is, of course, the Exodus. But he argues it's more than just a story that gets told once. He calls it the Exodus Motif, this foundational tradition that biblical authors kept coming back to and remixing over and over again. You know, think of it like a musician sampling a classic song. The original Exodus story is that classic track. And later biblical writers, they're like producers who take the best parts, the hooks, the beats, the key themes, and they weave them into something totally new, for a new audience, with a new message. And this motif has all these iconic moments we all know. The slavery in Egypt, the plagues, crossing the sea, wandering in the wilderness, getting the law at Sinai, and finally the conquest. But here's the absolute kicker, the key to our whole mystery. The authors didn't have to use all the parts. They could pick and choose. All right, so let's use that idea as our decoder ring for Psalm 136. The person who wrote this isn't just retelling the story for the heck of it. No, they are crafting a very specific remix with a very clear goal. And what was that goal? Simple, to paint a picture of God as a mighty warrior king, an unstoppable champion who fights on behalf of his people, Israel. Every single choice the author makes, what they include, what they leave out, it all serves this one powerful theme. And this slide just lays it out perfectly. Look at that column on the left. What's in the psalm? Striking the firstborn, defeating kings, splitting the sea. It's all about raw power and military victory. Now look at the right. What's left out? All of Israel's mess-ups, right? Their rebellion, the 40 years of wandering, all of that is just gone. Why? Because it doesn't fit the remix. It gets in the way of the story about an all-powerful warrior king and his chosen people. But believe it or not, it gets even cooler than that. Scholars have found these incredible clues, hidden in the poetry and the original Hebrew, that show just how carefully this thing was built. It's like real-life literary detective work. Okay, so clue number one. That famous chorus, the one that causes all the confusion in the first place? Well, there's some really strong poetic evidence that it wasn't even part of the original poem. It was probably tacked on later to turn the whole thing into a hymn that a big crowd could chant back and forth. So here's how they figured that out. The original poem seems to use this classic Hebrew poetic style called a terraced pattern. See how the phrase "a heritage" repeats? It creates this beautiful natural flow. Gave their land as a heritage to Israel his servant. You hear that? But when you jam "for his love is everlasting" onto the end of every single line, it just shatters that flow. For a scholar, that disruption is a huge red flag that the chorus was added later. Now for the second clue. This one is in the very specific words the psalmist uses for the splitting of the Red Sea. They use this really strange and rare Hebrew phrase, one that you just don't see in other versions of the Exodus story. The phrase is lagazar, lagazarim, and it literally means to cut something into pieces. Now, that is a weird way to talk about splitting water, right? It's like saying you diced the ocean. So the big question for our literary detectives is, why on earth use those words? Was the author just trying to be fancy? Or were they deliberately pointing us to something else, a hidden connection? And it turns out it's almost certainly a deliberate callback to an even older story, way back in Genesis 15, the moment God makes his big promise, his covenant, with Abraham. In that ancient ritual, animal bodies are cut into pieces, and God's presence passes between them to seal the deal. So by using that exact same, very unusual word, pieces, the psalmist is doing something absolutely masterful. He's linking Israel's great moment of freedom at the sea all the way back to the very first promise God ever made to them.
Okay, so let's bring all these clues together. Let's solve the mystery we started with. Is Psalm 136 a song of love or a song of war?
Well, the final verdict is, it's not a contradiction. It's a purposefully built victory hymn. The main character is God, the warrior king, and in this particular song, his everlasting love isn't some universal, peaceful feeling. No, it's a fierce, protective loyalty just for Israel, and it's proven by defeating their enemies. In this remix, Israel is totally passive. They don't mess up, they don't complain, they are simply saved by their champion. This isn't straight history, it's powerful, poetic theology.
And that leaves us with one last big idea to chew on. We so often read these ancient texts as if they're simple, straightforward history. But when you look closer, when you do the detective work, you find all these layers of art and purpose and remixing. It really makes you wonder, if one psalm can be this complex, this intentional, what other hidden stories are out there, just waiting for us to find them?